What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG, YouTube.com down there, you know, I feel like magic. And today, I've got a mill deck for you. Now, it's not the mill deck that I thought I was going to give to you, actually. At the end of the last video, I told you I was going to do a blue-white mill deck, but Renebo, I think, you've been commenting on this channel for like a year now. Maybe more, actually, and I'm not really sure how to pronounce that. But you did call my attention to Channel Fireball's blue-white mill deck. That looked an awful lot like the deck I was making, and I was like, man, Channel Fireball just put this out like a week and a half ago, so I'm not going to do this because I don't want to bite rhymes. So I've been putting together something with Startled Awake besides just blue-white, and I wanted to show you that instead of blue-white mill, but feel free to go check out this link to Channel Fireball because he's got a pretty good budget blue-white deck for you. Now, the other mill deck I've been working on is still a Startled Awake deck, but this is a Grixis deck. It's really a blue-red deck that plays like 1 or 2 black cards, you know, really not a whole lot of black in the deck. But we're still looking to mill them out with Startled Awake, Persistent Nightmare, you know. We've got a couple of different ways of getting it back from our graveyard or otherwise recasting it in this deck. So let me show you what I've got. Let's start with the one card in the deck that actually mills things. That's right. I'm only playing one thing that mills. We do have other win conditions and stuff, and the blue-white deck on Channel Fireball that I referenced was playing like Manic Scribe and Minister of Inquiries along with Startled Awake, Persistent Nightmare. That thing right there. We're only using Startled Awake. It's all we need in this deck. And again, we've got other win conditions. We've got ways of playing this out of our graveyard. We've got ways of copying it when we play it. And of course, it can help itself get out of the graveyard too. So this is pretty much all we need. 3 castings of this is going to end the game in a lot of situations. Now, to make sure that we can hold off long enough to mill them out with a few different castings of Startled Awake, we have to play a pretty hardline control deck, which means that we'll play tons of instants and sorceries, 28 instants and sorceries to be exact. But before we talk about those, let me show you something that can capitalize on the amount of instants and sorceries that we're playing and also get our Startled Awake back from the graveyard into our hand without having to go through Persistent Nightmare to do so. We're going to play 3 copies of, get ready for it, Metallurgic Summonings in this deck. That's right, it's a Summonings deck. Out of nowhere. Card is pretty stinking bomb, it turns out. You'll play this on turn 5, you know, mid-game somewhere. And then after that, every time you use a spell to draw cards or kill a creature or what have you, then you'll also get a little guy. You'll get a little artifact guy. And that's pretty cool. That'll help you, you know, protect your planeswalkers in this deck. You're playing a couple copies of Jace's. It'll help you, that's another win condition. You can just win the game off of all your artifact creatures, or eventually after you've made 6 artifact guys, if you've created a board stall, that's usually what happens there, then you'll be able to just get all of your instants and sorceries back from the graveyard, put them in your hand. That's pretty cool because you'll get a bunch of removal back, you'll get a bunch of card advantage back, and you'll also get your Startled Awakes back, which can be really cool. Overall, Summonings looks so weird. It just looks weird in every deck that it's in. But actually works really well in a deck with 28 instants and sorceries. We're trying to get our Startled Awakes back anyway, you know. Plus, not only do we get our Startled Awakes, we get all of our other stuff back too. So Metallurgic Summonings is just so good. And the whole time you're making creatures you can block or attack with, just Metallurgic Summonings is so good. It's so good. Remember back there where I said we play like a hardline control deck? Well, that's pretty much the end of the really, really neat stuff. Now we're just into like removal and card advantage and stuff like that. So let's run through that and see what kind of removal suite we're playing real quick. We're going to start with 4 copies of Galvanic Bombardment, 4 copies of Harness Lightning, and 3 copies of Unlicensed Disintegration here. Galvanic Bombardment, we just got to have it against all the aggro decks or we'll probably die. So let's do that. Harness Lightning, also good against those same aggro decks, and good against Smuggler's Copter in particular, so there's that. Unlicensed Disintegration is good because it's just unconditional creature removal, that's good. But it's also really nice with Metallurgic Summonings, because when you cast it, it makes its own artifact. So that's cool. So that works. That's, you know, pretty much the basic removal suite. Well, we've got a couple of other things here. I am going to play 1 copy of Ruinous Path in the deck. The number one thing here is that I just wanted a card that's good against Planeswalkers game 1. I especially don't want a Liliana to ultimate. That can really be devastating. So I wanted one thing in the deck that can really help deal with them. And Unlicensed Disintegration, you can use that 3 damage against the Planeswalker. So that's something to consider too. But mostly Ruinous Path is our big weapon game 1 against walkers. I'm also going to play 2 copies of Radiant Flames in the deck. That's just, you know, again, against all these low to the ground aggro decks. We need a panic button. Radiant Flames is perfect for that. We can often get 3 damage off of it. And the other removal piece I'm playing is just a 1 of Silver Bullet Geistblast. Geistblast in this deck. Yeah, it's here. A lot of people have been telling me about the interaction between this and Startled Awake, and yeah, I figured we'll give it a shot. You know, Geistblast in the early to mid game can take out small dudes that are around. It can deal 2 damage to a Planeswalker or a player if you want it to. But then, once it's in your graveyard, when you cast Startled Awake, you can pay 3 more mana and mill 26. So that's pretty cool. And also, after you use Metallurgic Summonings to get all your spells back, you can just cast your Geistblast on one turn, and next turn, go ahead and copy the Startled Awake that you also got back with the Summonings. And mill again 26 cards. It's just ridiculous. As far as other spells in the deck, we got to play some card advantage and some counter magic. Might as well, right? So we're going to play 4 copies of Glimmer of Genius and 2 copies of Anticipate as far as counter advantage and card selection goes. Glimmer of Genius is just super stupid solid piece. You know, scry 2, draw 2, energy's nice too because we're playing Aether Hub and Harness Lightning. So everything it does is great. Just a lot of people have talked about how good Glimmer is, and they're all right. Anticipate is very nice to be able to play when we're digging, because we will be digging in this deck, whether it's for Startled Awake or maybe a Summonings, maybe we're looking for removal, maybe we're digging for counter magic in response to something that they've played. So yeah, Anticipate's fantastic. I don't know why more people don't play that card. And as far as the counter magic goes, we'll play 2 copies of Void Shatter and 1 Summary Dismissal. I just want Summary Dismissal against Emrakul, which we will run across. Green-Black Delirium is very important right now, so we will run across Emrakul. I want to be ready for her. And then Void Shatter is just, you know, premium counter magic. Very good card right now. Let's play it. Just hard counters are good. Aside from Metallurgic Summonings, there's only 3 cards in the deck that aren't instants or sorceries, so let's check those out. We're just going to play 1 copy of Torrential Gearhulk in the deck, because obviously, right, 28 instants and sorceries. I know we can only recast instants, but we've got our fair share of those. You know, Glimmer of Genius, Anticipate, Harness Lightning, Unlicensed Disintegration. There's a lot of them, so still very relevant card, and is also a win condition, just so you know. 5 power things swinging at their face every turn is pretty good. So play Torrential Gearhulk, because why would you not do that? And then Jace, Unraveler of Secrets, we'll play that as a 2 of here. For a couple of reasons. This is also good card advantage, you know. It can not only send creatures back to their hand, which we sometimes want to do, but can also send back a Persistent Nightmare to our hand without having to, say, get through for combat damage. So that's just another trick you can do with Startled Awake right there. And if we can Ultimate Jace, it'll slow them down an awful lot, you know. Like, they basically have to draw a card on one turn, say go, and then draw another card turn 2, hope it's not a land, so they can play 2 spells in one turn. They can get through a spell. That will just cripple their production, and that is pretty good considering that we need as many turns as we can to mill them out, or just build up an army with Summonings. Let's take a look at the land base right here. You know, we got to play Aether Hub, but everything else is pretty self-explanatory too. You know, Canal, Wandering Fumarole, all this stuff. We don't want to play a whole bunch of black sources. We've already got Aether Hub. You know, we've got Evolving Wilds to go fetch the 1 swamp. So I'm just going to play the 4 Sunken Hollow to have a couple of more black sources. But that's pretty much the tail of it right here. There's not much to say about the mana base other than this is probably where we want to be. Here's the sideboard right here, and it's kind of a transitional sideboard against the Delirium decks. You know, we really don't want to mill them out. Because, you know, putting 13 cards in the graveyard is just giving them Delirium, so we don't want to do that. We'll play Fevered Visions and Thing in the Ice, especially against those decks, and Fevered Visions is also very good against Control, but we're already okay against Control, especially after we side out all the removal. Kalitas is in there as another win condition if we need him, especially against aggro decks with all the removal we're playing. Negate is in there mostly against Planeswalkers, Liliana especially. Again, we just really don't want her to ultimate where we're going to have a bad time. If that happens, Ob Nixilis I just like as an option. I especially like his ultimate if we can get it off, but his first 2 abilities are great too. I just like him to be in the 75. And then we'll play another copy of Summary Dismissal, mostly against the Emrakuls of the world. And here are your power rankings right here. A final score of 62 for this deck, which is not like insanely high, but that's because it's kind of wonky in a couple categories. You know, we're obviously not very high in speed. We're not going to be very high in offense necessarily, so the score is going to be sort of artificially deflated in this case. The deck is fairly solid and can win off of Torrential Gearhulk, Ob Nixilis out of the sideboard, but mostly we're looking to mill them out with Startled Awake, obviously, or hit them with a bunch of artifacts from Metallurgic Summonings. Obviously, we can also just like get all of our things back with Metallurgic Summonings and kill them with a couple copies of Startled Awake in a row. So that's also an option, you know. The deck has more win conditions than it looks like it has. And it also has that really cool trick with Geistblast too. So we're doing a lot to win the game in this deck. It's not just like, oh, we're just milling them and it's boring. There's a lot of stuff to do here. I guess the bad news here is that the deck, the main deck at least, is about $175 to build, and with the sideboard that'll bring it up to about $250. But you don't have to play the Kalitas in the board necessarily. You don't even really have to play the thing in the ice, you know. I just think it's great with all the instants and sorceries against decks that don't have a bunch of removal. Probably want to do that. Also a great blocker, so, you know, thing in the ice. Hey, Ziggy. But you don't have to play those high dollar cards in the board. I just think that they're really good picks for the board. But 175 for the main deck isn't god awful. You can do a lot worse than that in this format, especially like if you're trying to build Delirium or one of the really expensive decks. So this isn't so awful, you know, plus you're getting a lot of relevant cards, especially in the mana base if you go ahead and build it. So there's that. But the deck is a lot of fun if you want to play mill in this format and spend a little bit of money on it. I think this is the best way that you could do it. And again, we're not pinning all of our hopes on Startled Awake. We've got a few different paths to victory in the deck. I'm tapped out. That's all I've got for now. But my next video is going to be the Thanksgiving video. And we're going to do a pretty weird deck on that day. I'm not really going to say what it is yet because it's weird. I've got it ready to go. And I've actually done a similar deck. But the last time I did that deck was, I don't even think Shadows Over Innistrad was out. So it's a weird deck, but we have one like it. We've done one like it before. So let me see what you think it is. You know, of all the videos that you've seen on the channel, especially all the older videos and all the older subscribers that have been with me for a while, what do you think this might be? It's one of the weirder decks we've ever done. I'm going to revisit it in this completely new standard since we last did it. So looking for that. Going to do it. Going to be up by Thursday morning. So happy Thanksgiving by the next time I see you. And if you enjoyed the content, like the content, just hit the thumbs up button. Also sub if you're new, do all the YouTube stuff. And I will see you guys later. I hope you like this one. Let me know how you feel in the comments section. This is, I already told you we're doing a weird deck next time. This is one of the weirdest decks we've done in a long time right here. So let me know how you feel. What would you change? And I'll see you guys next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards.